like to introduce yourself?
Richard Houghten.
Richard Houghten, and he is one of our favorite musicians. He does music under his own name, under Bloomypetal, under A Cosmic Gift. If you don't know it, you will know it after this video.
And he also makes music,
yeah,
in makes records.
I've always wanted a blog that exists, maybe I'll create it one day, where artists are approached and they talk about how they came up with the band name, or even specific maybe song titles, like origins of that. I feel like oftentimes interviewers neglect that, and they just like take it for face value, like Radiohead, you are Radiohead.
Yeah,
but
like,
why?
Yeah.
And I feel like you can Google that answer, but what about more obscure bands? Like I'm always curious as to the origin of names, and so Bloomypetal, I don't know if you want to dive into it right now.
Oh, for sure. Got the name Bloomypetal, well, because I made a song, and I called it Bloomy Petals. And it's actually on this first CD I made, and I made it when I was in Seattle. I went to music school for about a year and studied at Cornish College of the Arts. And it was awesome because basically I got to make music all day long. I was learning about music, but I'd already made music since I was about 10 years old, like guitar. And I made this track that's actually in 7. So if you're counting the beat, it's in 7. But I made it on a grid of 64. So what I did is I used a Dave Brubeck drum sample, Take 5.
Classic.
Yeah, and then I slowed the tempo down, and I added like 2 more beats at the end of it, so it would loop in 7. But since I was on this like 4/4 grid, and the bar was looping in 7, I was trying to work around it to make it flow like it was in 4. So I just was, when I made that track, and I was living alone. It was like the first time living alone, and I was making music non-stop. I didn't show anybody, and I showed my friend Erin at the time, and she was like, "Oh my God, this song, I don't know why, it makes me want to drink coffee," and I really like. And I was like, out of all these different tracks, and so I was just really stoked on it. And then I think I made like a CD, and I for somebody, and I put like Bloomy Petals on the top, and they just thought, "Oh, is that your name?" And I was like, "Yeah, why not?" I don't think a lot of people know that track, and I'm gonna cut this this album to vinyl tomorrow.
What?
Yeah, on a VMS 70 lathe.
You are trying to make me broke. You are actively destroying any money I make.
Well, so I love records, and
Go figure, me too.
You know, and the last 2 years, I never knew how a record was made. When I first got the first record I got pressed, the process baffled me, and I was like, like the inverse mold, the stamper. I was like, I really didn't get it. But I loved the way they sounded, and I would sample records. So, I mean, this album is completely sample-based. I would play bass, like, from a synth, but the drums, all, like, a lot of, like, reggae samples and things are just from all my, like, collection.
You release music under your name as well as under Bloomypetal. How do you differentiate whether or not it's a Richard release or a Bloomypetal?
Yeah, it's kind of hard because I guess I started doing the Bloomypetal stuff as more of, like, electronic sampling beats, and then separating the stuff under my name with more guitar-driven stuff. But it's been hard because I just don't want to like spend the time managing 2 different. Yeah, so I release everything through like the same Bandcamp page and stuff, and it's been one of those things where I'm like, maybe I should just release it as the just one thing, you know? I love collecting songs and making them tell like a little story. So in a vinyl record's a perfect amount of space just to have like a cool little story. Like, you know, you can fit about 20 minutes on each side, and that's perfect, you know? And it's not, I mean, CD, you know, you're talking like 60 minutes, so it's like pushing it. It's like you gotta have a lot of material.
Is there a certain album of yours that you relate to the most, or that you feel like everyone should start with this one if they want to do it?
Good question. I was literally gonna ask the same thing next.
It's hard because I'm emotionally attached to the songs that I made at certain times in my life. So, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. Like, for me, a lot of these old songs, are like distant memories. Like when I was hanging out with people that I don't even maybe talk to anymore. So for me, it's an emotional place. Yeah, so they bring me back there, and so I have no idea what they sound like. Someone could be like, "That sounds awful," but I'm like, well, it reminds me of that time, and that's what's wonderful about music, is that it's like a notebook for me. So I can, it's a way for me to remember times. Like when I hear music that I made at a certain time, it like, kind of like when you smell something, it instantly like brings back everything. Yeah. So, and that's maybe not the best thing as far as like catering something that you think people are gonna like, but I did feel like that all guitar album came out nicely When I really first got into records, I was into jungle music.
Okay.
Like electronic music, like
Yeah.
Amon Tobin, Square Pusher.
Oh, I love Amon Tobin.
Yeah, and my friends and I went to Europe when I was like 19, and that was like in the height of jungle, and that's where all the dubs were coming from, and we were like, oh my gosh, we gotta go to some record stores there. I like to think of a lot of the times the way people make music. So like here's like Madlib,
Uh-huh.
and then let's see what we got going here. Oh,
Diggable
Diggable Planets, Fortet. This is an old Fortet record.
Ooh,
Remixes.
nice.
Nice.
From
I
Oz.
actually love Fortet. I have almost every LP except for Dialogue.
Oh yeah.
That's the only one I can't find.
Oh, you can't. Is it pretty rare?
It's out of print, yeah.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah.
It's so funny how certain ones just go out of print,
Yeah.
and then it's like the prices soar, you know?
Mhm.
But
I've never even seen it in person, only online for more than I want to spend.
Yeah, I love Fortet. I'd have to say he's probably one of the most influential. I honestly don't really listen to a lot of his new material, but the album Pause that came out
Pause is incredible.
is one of the most. I was thinking I was like 18 or 17 when I heard it. And I was like, I listened to it over and over and over. And what I loved is I'm a guitar player, so I heard him using a lot of organic sounds that he sounded like he recorded himself with like drum breaks and stuff, and I was just like moved by that. Mr. Scruff. I don't know if you guys know Mr. Scruff.
No.
It's really classic. He's like this guy known for providing tea at his shows.
Okay.
Wants to have like a proper night. Tortoise.
Oh man, what do you think of The Catastrophist?
Oh, is that a new album?
That's the newest one.
I haven't heard it.
Was that Standards?
This is Standards.
Standards is classic.
This is the one
TNT.
that just like blew my mind.
Yeah.
TNT with
Yeah.
John McIntyre doing a lot of the, with all the guys. They're incredible musicians. My friend calls it the Black Crack, and I have a bunch of dub, a bunch of like 90s electronica, a bunch of Miles Davis. I was obsessed with Miles Davis.
What's your favorite Miles Davis album? Hard question, I know.
No, I would say, well, okay. I'd say the stuff he did with Charlie Parker.
Uh-huh.
I love that. Oh, this is just a greatest hits, but Seven Steps to Heaven is one of my favorite Miles Davis songs. It's really beautiful. And what's cool about, I think about, even if it's like a reissue or a greatest hits, if it's an old record like before the digital era, you know that it was transferred from tape, you know? So it was an all analog transfer. So I really appreciate like knowing, I mean, even if it doesn't sound, like a lot of digital to analog records sound great, but it's kind of cool knowing that they like had to mail a tape overseas and it was all handled like through analog tape machines to the lathe to the pressing. That's just kind of cool to me. Charles Mingus, this is amazing, this album. I got this a long time ago. My friend was like, just get this, you'll love it. And you probably have heard that someone in Gangstar, the boom, 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 boom. There's a bass line from Charles Mingus that's just so classic. And I didn't know that they had sampled Charles Mingus, and I heard it's called Haitian Fight Song.
Okay.
And yeah, it's one of those like, just such a good bass line. My favorite artist is, this is a new record I got, and I've just been listening to all his albums digitally, is Tiamani Diabate. And this guy's from Mali.
Okay.
And he plays a kora, which is an African harp. It's probably like the most beautiful instrument I've ever heard.
Wow.
And I try to make instruments, so
God.
yeah. So this is really pathetic.
Is that a gourd?
This
Was
is a gourd. This is a
Okay.
gourd. Yeah. It's totally out of tune. I need to like I adjust it. But so this is a really like not rad
They
version.
look the same.
Yeah.
Give or
But
take.
I've made a lot of songs with this though, and sample it on a lot of my records. This is was a silverware box, and it was found in a thrift store, and it's like the Dalla Plaza in Switzerland, and it had all this like nice silverware in there. And I asked them, I was like, can I just get the box? And they were cool about it. And this was a piece that I had lying around, and I made the neck out of like 3 different pieces of wood, and then just sanded it down. And something about working with the wood was just like really calming. When I was making this, Nicole pointed out that she's like, I think your frets are starting to like curve. And I was like so tired, I like wanted to finish this, and the frets were the last thing, and I was like, oh my god, it's gonna not work. But I can play it for you, it kind of works. And I didn't plan this, so there's only 5 strings. I was planning on having 6 strings, but
Sounds great. Is that your girlfriend?
This is my girlfriend.
Yeah.
She plays cello.
Oh wow.
And I was like, can you just make us those old school sea divers, deep sea divers? And Nicole's she wanted to be a mer jelly.
Of course.
As one does.
Yeah.
Yes. And so he can put anything like that, like imaginative to pen. And he did the last one for Sonata de Grillo, which is that record.
Oh yeah, I have that guy.
Yeah.
Look at this. This is art. I mean, the music is art, but then the visual matches it. It's perfect. The screen printed cover.
Wow, she.
Numbers it. This is
That's my
luxury.
favorite number.
Ooh. Yeah, so this is the Cosmic Gift record we just released. And these ones all sold out.
Fast.
We were really lucky. I was like, I can't believe it, actually. They sold out within like 24 hours. But we still have a lot of other cool colored ones that I wanted this time to like make sure that people got it who wanted it. So I made 300 of the other one just to make sure that like, if you really want to listen to it, the hardest part about making a record is that no one knows for sure where the noise started. Because, so let's say I'm cutting a lacquer. You're not supposed to listen to the lacquer because you can wipe out the groove. Like it wouldn't destroy it, but every time you play it, it's gonna lose like some high end, maybe drag the needle through it and create some noise. So you don't listen to it. So technically I could have cut something on here that just sounds horrible, you know, and then it goes on and then you get a test press and you're like, oh my God, was it the lacquer? Was it the electroplating? Was there something in the bath? Like, did they use old nickel? Was it dirty water?
But
that,
you
like,
don't even know until you get the test press.
and you can check each stage and then try to have that quality control, but it's really hard. Like, and you don't want to like point blame. So at the end of the day, like if your test press sounds bad, a lot of times you're just like, let's just cut another one. And it's a crazy process, and it can take a few months to get nowadays it can take like 2 to 3 months to get a test press. Some people are waiting like 6 months to get their records. This is all guitars. This is I don't own any of these anymore because I sold all like my last copy.
So I noticed with all your releases, the art is as important as the music. Like the art is so beautiful.
Oh, thanks.
But you tend to do this thing where you have 2 sheets as opposed to like a jacket. Is that a stylistic choice?
This is something that fell away from me when I was releasing everything digitally, was the artwork. I love capturing like the feel and the mood of the music in a big piece. And I felt like for some reason when I was releasing it digitally, I didn't have as much passion about like maybe what the image was when I put it up. I did care, but it's always small on a screen, and something about seeing it really big. And I wanted to work with other artists I love working with like people that can draw and do graphics, because I cannot do that. And it's so fun to be able to collaborate with other people and go like, hey, I had this concept, is there any way that you could help me make an album cover? And I think they enjoy working with like musicians, and it brings people close together and has more of like a community feel. Records are more than just the record itself too. It's like it can bring a lot of different talents together, you know?
Totally.
Like from the pressing plant to the cutting engineer to the metal plating to the guy who draws it and the guy who does like offset printings. Uses huge machines. They're not digital printers. They actually press it onto the thing. Well, this is digital printed, but you know. But you know, there's just a lot of neat processes that I've been learning about just by going down this road. I also like that it's a standalone art piece. Like my friend David did this, and if you look in at it, like everything circles. He just works in these like super intricate, and even at like I think it was like 600 DPI, we couldn't capture the intricate how detailed some of his stuff was on the print. Here's some of those discs that I made.
Oh yeah, those are the 7 inches.
Yeah,
That's gorgeous, man.
thanks.
How do you even like go about making the etchings like that on that?
Well,
Is it laser? It's laser etched?
No, it's all by hand. Like it's just like super time consuming, and it's something that I like figured out on my own. And
Of course.
it's fucking takes forever.
So you can say each one is a little bit different somehow.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, and I mean, these are. I love experimenting, and the thing is that so many of my experiments don't work. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of time and effort, and then when it does work, I'm like, it's a victory. But these ones that were difficult to cut, just because of the way I made these, your disc needs to be super flat when you're cutting it. So if there's any like variation in the surface, it can make the needle skip. So I can't tell you like how rough it was to go through and make these, and then some of them started skipping. I was like, oh no. But most of them worked. So, and then what I did is I did like purple, red, and then
Ooh, look at
green,
Whoa.
and blue. I have that for you too. So.
You carved into a laser disc and put music on it.
Yeah, I try all
That's
sorts
crazy.
of things. So this is a laser disc that I bought at the thrift store. And you can see I just cut the hole out in the back to make it fit and just put a little sticker on so it'll play. But, just experimenting, and experiments don't always come out great. I love the way it almost looks like a wood grain.
Yeah, it
the
does.
grooves. And I just like trying new things like that, especially like if it's a little different. This is another weird one that I did. I was trying to make like a like a Frankenstein. This is a DVD, and then I put it onto a plastic disc, and I wanted to make it kind of like a planet, and then I painted the underside of it. I never released this because it's just so completely bizarre.
Does it play though?
Yeah, I want to show you guys. That's that grime song.
Yeah. Such a good cover. Have you heard this episode?
And then this is the Flying Lotus cover I did, and that's cut into the DVD.
Yeah.
This is some of the stuff I've been experimenting with.
And these are ones you've actually released and they sold out instantly, so sorry guys.
This is the Open Horizon, and that's the snowflake. It's a Bentley snowflake. What's neat about this is that it's etched, but it's actually a groove. So I'm using vibrations to create difference in the lines that are going around. So where you would see this is like clear or maybe white, what the image of the snowflake is actually vibrations just being stacked around. So it's kind of like an on-off like pitch. So I think I'm using like a 500 hertz tone. So I'd be like, it kind of sounds like Morse code when I'm playing it. And what I do is I do a lot groove right here.
Yeah.
So that people don't go into this crazy like bleepy bleepy tune. I kind of like it, and I've tried to make music into the shapes and things, and I haven't fully I have some records that I want to release where there's actually an image, but it actually can play sounds and like a beat and stuff.
Oh, wow.
So I'm trying to figure out like what images will work really well with like rhythmic variations and stuff. So what happened was I was always interested in like understanding how grooves work on a record, and I found a guy in Germany who was making really like small runs of vinyl lathes, and a lot of time, there's not a whole lot of these in the world, and if there were some, they were really expensive. So I wrote him, and I just was like, I would love to learn from you, or if you possibly get a lathe. And I just didn't think, I didn't hear back from him for months, and then he just told me, this is possible. He's like, you gotta come to Germany to learn from me,
Wow.
which is, I thought was really cool. I thought that was one of the coolest things about it, is that he didn't want to give away like his work of, or his like,
To anyone.
yeah, it was like a work of love for him.
Yeah.
And he didn't want it just to go off and be like used in any which way. He was like, there's a way to use it.
For the wrong reasons.
Maybe. I mean, he's so funny. He listened to my music and he said, I like your music. And he was like jamming it over the phone from and I was like, oh, awesome. And then he was like, I'll see you later, alligator. And I was like, after a while, crocodile. And he was like, and he laughed really. I was like, this guy sounds really cool, you know? But I had no idea if this was a bad idea. I was, going over to Germany with, I had no idea what it was going to be like, but it was beautiful. It was, he lives out in the countryside. I don't know how he makes these things. They're incredible. And he I'd first heard about this because I read a blog on, about Kid Koala. It was Kid Koala's blog. And he had gone over to Germany and got one of these lathes. And so I was like, well, I know that he came back. And then
One Piece.
One Piece, he was all good. And I asked Suri about that. I was like, oh, did you meet Kid Koala? Did you teach him? And he's like, yes. He'll say things you need to like learn to see, hear with your eyes, which I love things like music boxes and things that relate to the physical world where I can see them working.
Yeah.
Something about just being able to imagine how sound works and to close my eyes and imagine how it travels through the air. Because there's a thing called cymatics, which I'm like completely in love with, which is the physical manifestation of sound in different like mediums. And basically the first time I saw something, I should show you, I have this amazing book. but you can see shapes, and so sound, like harmonies and things, manifest in all these different patterns. And a lot of times I try to imagine what it would be like to like walk down a vinyl groove, or skateboard down a vinyl groove. You know?
Wow, yeah.
And then you could just see every little nuance, because what's amazing is that vinyl or sounds, they travel in each other. So like a bass note is traveling like this, and then a treble note's riding in that bass note. So like, let's say you have, it's just a really simplistic way to imagine it, but like you have bass and you have drums and you have guitar. All those sounds are in one groove, and so like they're just all like shaking at different frequencies, and it's a pretty magical thing to imagine. It's very much how like a speaker works. Like if you look at like these speakers and you're thinking like the complexities that you're hearing, like the emotional things that you're getting, and these speakers are just moving back and forth, and you're hearing all that. It's like, it's kind of impossible to really like comprehend. Like you can get it in some level, but it's like kind of magic. It is magic. So the way I cut records, you want me to just go for it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we understand it's a very mystical, secret process. We don't want you to reveal anything that you can't, but this is cool because there's not much stuff about this online.
Yeah, this is my lathe, and this is the cutter head, and it's belt driven. So, and this is like the shell or the core of a Technics turntable, and it's a very like Frankenstein, like beautiful creation, because the guy who made this, Surrey, basically it's like I think it's his life's work, and when you really start to understand like how meticulous everything was made and how balanced it is and how nice the cuts are on this, you got to wonder like, how in the world does this guy who lives out in the countryside in Germany make this, you know? And I don't know. He's really, I mean, he's a genius. He's a true genius and passionate. So this is a really heavy platter that basically just keeps the inertia going once it's spinning. And I cut lacquers on here, and I also cut a lot of blank discs. So, and these are like, as you can see, is quite the stack. These are like my test. I'll oftentimes, like before I actually cut a record for someone or myself, I test it a bunch of times, and it's a lot of the time that goes into these is getting it perfect, you know? You can't just play the music and cut it. When I'm cutting it, it's cutting right here, and I'm also monitoring what's happening. So what this enables me to do is to listen to each record as it's cutting, so that I know that each one's gonna play. And unlike a lacquer, you don't listen to the lacquer when you cut it. But when I'm cutting into just like really hard plastic, I get it super fucking hot. I get it super hot, and making so it can cut deep grooves and quiet grooves. And what's beautiful about this is you can play these over and over and over again, just like a vinyl record. Essentially, it's very similar material to a vinyl record. Yeah, so I have all sorts of like, mostly I cut 7 inches and 12 inches, and you know, I have hundreds of different. Mostly they're either black or clear. You always check out the grooves under a microscope to make sure that, you know, your grooves aren't crashing, to make sure they're healthy and looking good. This uses a diamond.
You're a vinyl doctor.
Yes, this is a diamond, and this is the cutter head, and so basically you're getting like a left and right signal, moving one point back and forth and up and down. So vinyl grooves move up and down and back and forth. So essentially, like the walls are like a 90-degree angle, like this, and then the grooves are moving on the side walls. And most of the time, if it's in mono, it's cutting back and forth, and then if it's in stereo, it's cutting back and forth and up and down.
Oh.
Pretty cool. Mm-hmm. So there's a whole like geometry that's going on there. That's if you try to wrap your head around it, it's simple, but then at the same time, it's like infinitely complex because the variation is endless. So, especially when you're thinking about like why a violin sounds like a violin and a voice sounds like a voice, like they could play the same note, but you automatically know that like one's in a hallway, one's recorded in a dry room, one has a string with a wood instrument, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like that we can just, that's probably one of the most amazing things that we can distinguish with just vibration, is the difference between those, or if something's like far away or close. It's pretty cool.
So what happens if you hear a skip halfway through doing this?
It's rough.
Yeah.
I just have to redo it, and that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand about like cutting one by one, is that you might be cutting like a 30-minute long record, and then on the B side something happens, and then you just gotta discard it, you know? And you're
that's
just like,
brutal.
It's brutal, especially after you've been cutting like 9, and it's
Right.
been like hours, and in Los Angeles it's hot, so I have these heat lamps, so I'm just like, but it's really enjoyable, especially if I like really dig the music,
Yeah,
you know?
this is awesome. So this is kind of like almost like a Mac DeMarco kind of vibe.
Yeah,
It's like
this
this
is
like
great.
lo-fi psychedelic pop.
Yeah.
What's the name of this band again?
This is Good Morning, and this is cool. So what they did is they have the studio album on the A side, and then these are the same songs but just demo recordings.
Awesome.
So this is why it sounds. I think they might have recorded it to tape because this one there's some like tremolo effects.
Okay.
That sound really cool, but my ear trained is like to hear that is like the records like whoaing and fluttering.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh no, but I'm like, no, it's part of the
Their effect.
effect.
Right. It's like you're a cook almost in the kitchen.
Oh, exactly.
That's awesome.
I'm doing 100, which
Okay.
is a huge amount for lathe cut.
Yeah.
Which is, it's gonna be a lot. It's gonna take me a couple months
Wow.
Whoa.
because you know each one could take close to about 50 minutes, and then in between setting it up and whatnot, it just takes time. But yeah, they're coming out really good now, and what really makes a difference is like I'm using a diamond. If you have a fresh diamond that's been like polished and sharpened, it sounds really good.
It's like almost a lost art, but you're keeping it alive.
Yeah, totally. I love doing it. Definitely can drive, I think, anybody. Well, I can go crazy doing it because I can't explain what it's like to listen to something like 40 times in a row, or to hear something and then you hear it skip. So if I have this emotional thing. If I hear it skip, I'm like, oh no.
And the skip is not always your fault though.
Basically, with a record, the grooves need to be really close together to fit more time. So you can cut like a really loud side, but you're gonna compromise. You can only cut like maybe 14 minutes. So what happens is that how deep the grooves are cut also make a difference on how wide the grooves are. So if the groove's wider, let's say like it's just getting hotter and hotter, that needle that's cutting might sink in a little deeper, and like some bass might just be like boom, and then when it's coming back around it'll hit the previous groove, and then it's skipping. So most of the time you have the spacing perfect, but every once in a while maybe you have like a bass note that kicks, and then on the previous groove you have a bass note that just perfectly align and collide over each other, and then that's how you get skipping.
It's kind of cool for your buyers to know how much of a perfectionist you are. Just so like they can be assured like this was
Right.
100% made carefully for
Oh
me.
yeah, it's. I mean, it's one of those things too where people are like, you should charge more for that shit.
You should.
because
You
you're
really
She said that to me.
I was like, I can't believe how like affordable these are and how beautiful
I'm stoked
is.
that people like want them. I can't. He's like a musician, you know. I can't explain like how flattering it is that people want to like get it. You know, I'm like,
Yeah.
please, you know, like I'm stoked, but it is a lot of work, and sometimes I'm like, oh, I want to be able to like not be homeless and
It's always nice.
Feed my dogs.
yeah, feed the dogs.
Right.
Hi, my name is Nicole Calhoun. I play cello on a lot of Richard's albums.
And specifically, you work with him on his other project, A Cosmic Gift.
Yes.
So can you guys tell me how that came to be, who's involved? Give us the skinny.
So the Cosmic Gift is Nicole, Brandon, and myself. And Nicole does all the beautiful cello work, like on all the albums. And she's actually layering so much of it. A lot of that is like four different harmonies going on. And we record it all here with this sweet ribbon mic. And Brandon, A Cosmic Gift is like completely me and Brandon creating all the Brandon makes most of the drums, so those like intricate like drum patterns are all Brandon, and he's seriously a true prodigy. You can hear he makes a lot of jungle drum and bass, and he's just like he's so prolific. And we met in San Francisco and just hit it off, and we make pretty different styles of music, but we just started sending each other back and forth different things, and it just turned in. We just started realizing like, whoa, this is cool. Like there was a week where we made like an entire album because we were vibing, and then Nicole has been like playing on it, and it's just this thing it just started happening, and then Brandon's like, this is a cosmic gift that this is working out the way it is, because he lives in Portland, and it's just it's so random that we're like in different states, and I think it's just really fun to be. It's always really fun to do. We're never really like sweating it too much. It's always just something. I think we have currently like 30 songs that we've made. This is our first album, and so these were like the first songs we made. And
how would you describe the album?
Most of it is this back and forth of like Brandon can write entire drum parts or songs. So it's kind of cool. He'll give me something like a 4-minute long part where you can literally like hear the drum pattern changing into like the chorus, into a C section and like and whatnot, and then you just like, oh, you have a song written in drums, and then Nicole record cello, I'll record bass and guitar, and just edit it. Sometimes we send it back and forth. But yeah, we make a lot of things that we're like, whoa, that came out pretty weird. We make a lot of stuff too, though, that we're like, oh, this is great. Let's continue working on this.
It's a really fun project to work on. Brandon brings like a lot of fresh air to the work, and honestly, like Richard does a great job filling in a lot of the harmonies and the texture of music in that way. And he'll often come up with the core cello parts, and then we'll just record them and see what we like and play around with adding layers to it. I really like to layer cello parts and give it like really rich texture. So that's kind of where I get to have fun, and sometimes I'll tweak stuff, but a lot of times like the core cello parts are Richard's ideas as well, so it's fun to be able to realize them on cello.
Yeah, Nicole's pretty amazing as far as like, I can hum something and then she can play it, harmonize it again, and I'm like, oh my god, that sounds amazing. And she's like, oh, that's really simple. That's like the stack, or 1, 3, and 5, and the 7, and like, she has a great understanding too of music composition and just structuring chords and making things sound awesome. Our buddy Tepe Ondo did the artwork, and he's absolutely incredible. He did, oh, I should bring the other cover out that he did.
Yeah, Sonata de Griot.
Yeah, let me grab that.
Did you
I
talk
love that
about the
cover.
cricket at all?
Oh, I'd love to hear about the cricket. I don't know anything about
Do you
it.
not know anything
No.
about the cricket? Okay, so when we lived in Oakland, our building got purchased, and as part of the renovations on the property, the new landlord ripped out the old garden, which had tons of like wild plants and was kind of intended to be a wildlife habitat garden. It had lots of like birds and bees and crickets. And so for a while our yard was just this bare space, and then they put in a very kind of sterile new landscape, and we missed hearing all the animal sounds. And during that time, Richard was also getting really into field recording with his portable recorder. And one night we heard the first cricket come back into our yard, and we got really excited about it. And Richard went out, and what's funny about crickets is like they're really loud until you try to like track it down, and then they're like very quiet. So it took like a few like false tries of like kind of sneaking up on the cricket and finding the right position, but Richard eventually got a really cool recording of it. And then he took the cricket sound and turned it into a beat, and like slowed down the cricket a little bit so that it harmonized with itself and made this like really cool. So Sonata de Griot means song of the cricket, and on this album one of the songs features this, our first cricket back in our old home in Oakland.
That's awesome.
And so then our friend Tepe Ondo, who's this really great artist, drew a picture of Richard playing guitar the same scale as this cricket. And so it's like they're making music together.
I've forever wanted him to like make a, because he also does animation videos, and I've been wanting to please like open a video with this scene and just let it continue. So this is the silkscreen version. This one looks really trippy. It's kind of like,
Yeah, it's like almost like
a 3D.
hologram or something. Yeah.
a lenticular almost.
Yeah. And so these are my only 2 copies that I have. I had to like, I wanted to save a couple, and I gave one to my mom too, so I know that one's over there. But I only made 100.
So the title song, that was one of the ones you pressed on the 7-inch. That was the original thing before you pressed the LP. Because that was my first release I got from you. That was that's how I discovered you.
Yeah.
And became hooked. Thank you so much for inviting us into your world, and
Of course.
and the
To
magic.
your magical world
You're a
of
music wizard.